This piece of Lisa is being brought to you by Mutual Security Credit Union. Find out more at mscu.com.
If you ever make a pop, call for pop.
If you ever take a boat and get lost at sea, write to me.
It's friendship, just a perfect friendship. Another friendship.
In the annals of television, Friends, were there ever better friends than Lucy and Ethel? Do you remember them ripping their dresses apart on I Love Lucy? And how many times have you seen that episode? And it still never fails to get a laugh. Well, we have a different age of friendship today, don't we? A lot of us have virtual friends, and a lot of us, frankly, have virtual identities. And Facebook has taken advantage of that and run with it all the way, creating, instigating, propelling the entire movement. In fact, The Social Network, the movie, was all about Facebook, which I read today claims that it has 800 million users. I thought it was only 500. That seemed enough for me. 800 million users. There are two stories that I want to talk about right now with you regarding Facebook. One of them has to do with free speech and whether or not you can be fired and what the rules are. Can you be fired if you say something on your Facebook wall or somebody else's that your employer doesn't like? And we'll talk about the latest news and law with respect to that. And first, I want to discuss with you the brand new overhaul of Facebook that you and I can expect. Last Thursday, there was a big conference in San Francisco. And during that conference, which about 2,000 people attended in reality and another 100,000 attended virtually, Facebook revealed something they're calling a new timeline feature. Now, remember that you're going to have heard that word here first, but you'll hear it again afterwards. And this timeline feature is looking to radically redesign your page in a way that gives you a history, a personal history of every time you've been on Facebook and every time anybody else has been on your Facebook with you. And it's going to be considered to be your virtual scrapbook. That's what Facebook has in mind. CEO Mark Zuckerberg delivered his keynote speech during something called the Facebook F8 Developer Conference in San Francisco last week. And among many of its other features, Timeline is going to allow you to tell which of your previous friends at some point decided to defriend you. Something you can't find out right now. Something many of us probably would rather not even know. Something some of us might want to know. Who defriended us and when? And then, of course, a question would be why? Why were we defriended? My feelings are hurt. Well, I can tell you that a lot of times people defriend people because they're not really friends with them to start with. You know, a lot of people reach out to you to be your so-called friend, but for whatever reason, they're networking, or you're a friend of a friend of a friend, or they like what you do for a living. In my case, I happen to be on the radio, and I friend anybody who asks to be my friend. But once in a while, I don't know if you use Facebook, but once in a while, if you sign in from a different computer, they ask you to validate that you really are the person using Facebook, and they will give you pictures of 10 friends, and you have to identify them so that they can make sure you are the real you. Well, I was able to sort of get away with it the last time, but I think next time if somebody asks me, I don't know most of my friends on Facebook, I'll be honest. A few of them I do know, a few of them are really my friends, but the vast majority of the 1,000 or so people that are my so-called friends on Facebook, they're not my friends. I mean, it's nice to know you, but you're not really my friend. So the question that I have for you, and our telephone number is 203-845-3044, is, would you like this feature? Is this something that you yourself feel is beneficial to your life, to be able to know who defriended you and when? Or do you think this is superfluous and frankly can only lead to bad things and not really relevant? And I'm going to ask Mike Robb, who happens to be sitting at the board for the next hour, only because, Mike, you are a Facebook maven. You are. You're a social networking maven. You know everything and anything there is to know about the net. You've heard about this new feature that will not allow anonymous defriending any longer.
Mm-hmm.
what's your first take on this?
The first take is going to be that a lot of people are going to ask the very same question that you did. Why? Why don't you like me anymore?
Right. Why don't you like me anymore? And we already have all these bullyings and cyberbullying on Facebook, and we know how impressionable our adolescents are.
And people use that as believe me, they use that as a weapon anyway. Kids use it as a weapon.
That's what I'm talking about.
You're no
kids.
longer my friend, you're out.
Right, and it hurts them badly.
Oh, yeah, they use it as a weapon constantly.
I mean, I know
but adults use it too.
I was going to say, I know my own kids have used it with me. Are you stalking me, Mom? Did you actually know when and where and what nightclub and who I was with? I'm going to defriend you. I'm like, don't do that. Please don't do that. It's the only way I can keep up with you.
Here's an answer. Why couldn't the answer to that be, why do you put your personal business on the internet to them?
Because they think that they're actually just with friends. They don't think it's their mother who's stalking them. But you're right. It's a very good point. It is a very good point. A friend of mine
gave great advice. He said, once you put anything on the internet, the first time you strike a key, you've hit that key in front of everybody on the planet.
I know.
So everything that follows that key from then on, whatever letters, words, pictures, you've now put it up for everybody on the planet. Get used to it.
Do you like the idea that Facebook itself is evolving into something that needs to be a historical scrapbook of your whole life? That they are going to grab all the different transactions? For the first time, Facebook is grabbing internet transactions from before Facebook was invented. They're grabbing all the stuff they can about you. You like that
No,
idea?
not at all, no. But let me ask you a question from a law standpoint.
Go ahead.
Here you are, you have a job, you post something on Facebook that you had a wild weekend, whatever, you're with your friends, you're in front of a mirror, you're holding a drink like billions of people.
Billions of people with their tongue hanging out the side like they think that they're funny. Go ahead.
Monday morning, now we're talking not about a big company, but a small company.
Sure.
Say, Monday morning you're fired.
Because of that.
You know something, we looked at this.
What a great segue.
Now, let me ask you.
Go ahead.
Who, as that person who got fired, who could you seek retribution from? The boss who fired you, obviously a little bit, or the deep pockets of Facebook? And is there a case there to sue Facebook for saying, you never warned me, you never put anything on the side of the cup that said this was hot, you never warned me about this?
In other words, do you blame the means of distribution for your own failings to post that picture?
Or do you blame McDonald's for the fact that coffee in your lap is hot?
Or I'll tell you one other thing. What if, isn't there a feature in Facebook where you can be tagged in a photo that you didn't post?
Absolutely.
Okay. So an employer could theoretically see the tag. You didn't post it. You didn't want it to go online. You didn't want it to be anybody's business, and you were fired nonetheless. That, to me, is a much stronger case against Facebook.
Or is that now? But now you've also brought in the person who put the photo up. Also.
Yeah, but my point is that because their means of distribution is so open and so openly allows private information to be disclosed to the world, even though you yourself didn't post it, then I think you have a stronger case against the means of distribution against Facebook.
It is a huge, as much as I do, you're right, I do appreciate social media. I think it's very important. I think where we're going with it is incredible. I do think it's a huge danger in some cases. This big storm cloud that's just waiting to come over the horizon, and we're going to see something really, really big with this in the next few years.
Well, we've already seen suicides, right? We've already seen individuals. There's no question about it, that the cumulative impact of cyberbullying, remember that case in Arizona with the mother who posted the false identity and tortured the 13-year-old and rightfully went to jail? So we have seen the ultimate kind of price that individuals have paid. But it's interesting you should talk about being fired, because the second part of this conversation is the brand new news that the NLRB, which is interesting to me, the National Labor Relations Board, seems to be where all the action is going on right now in terms of suing. I would have thought that you basically had a free speech protection for what you said on Facebook in terms of being firing. It's not the case. And what's happening is that because if it was the case, the NLRB wouldn't be hearing them. It would be regular courts that would be hearing them. There would be cases, and basically people would be going away by now. But what's happening is the National Labor Relations Board is where if you're fired, you would make a complaint to, whether you're unionized or not, and the NLRB would decide to hear your complaint. There was a famous Connecticut case that was heard in which the board sided with the Connecticut woman because she was fired from an ambulance company after she went on Facebook to criticize her boss. And the case settled last year. The company agreed to change its internet policy because the internet policy was that You couldn't, if you were a worker, discuss anything about the company over the internet. And since she had, and since she was fired, there was outrage. But listen to this. I want to tell you the standard of law. It's very interesting. Union and non-union workers are protected when you engage in, quote, protected concerted activity. And that means when you get together with anybody else to discuss working conditions in your company, you can't be fired. But the proof is in the pudding and the devil is in the details. Because, for example, there was a case where in an Indiana, and I think this is a bad result, an employee at an Indiana emergency fire protection company, an emergency thing, was fired because she went on the wall of her senator, her U.S. Senator Dick Lugar, to complain that her company skimped on wages and that its cheap service compromised the quality of care. And she was an emergency worker. So you could argue that there is a social reason, there is a public policy reason why her words should be protected under free speech. And she went on his public wall to complain about her company. She was fired, and the NLRB refused to take the case, and the firing stood. It stood. So to me, that tells you that you have to be very careful. It's very precarious indeed to complain about anybody or do anything and think that your speech is protected if you do it on Facebook.
Very true. Very true. Well, what about the fact that anybody can get into Facebook for the most part, unless you make it private? Do you suggest to your children, for example, they make their stuff private?
Very much so. Definitely. I suggest to them, well, first of all, the big picture, which you started with, which is correct, is that it's not anybody's business, everything you do. Every picture you've taken, every party you've been to. And I'll tell you something else. And maybe this is more sexist of me because I have a girl as well as a boy. I don't really want the world knowing too much about my daughter, frankly, or my son. I think there are predators out there for both boys and girls. I'm not interested in predators knowing too many details of my children's lives. Period. End. That's a good enough reason for me to tell them, you be careful. There are creeps and villains out there. There are. There absolutely are. You've just been listening to A Piece of Lisa. If you'd like to listen to the whole 2-hour show, please go to lisawexler.com where all shows are archived. And do follow me on Twitter at Lisa Wexler. Thanks for listening.